sure it pops up my notification. We'll rock it. There we go. Welcome into another episode of the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast. This is night 3 of 8 of our big marathon for Masters Week. My name is Andrew Putters, and I'm here with my partner, Joe Nicely from Rotoballer.com, and we're happy to have us tonight coming all the way from several hours north of us. I know that, and probably a few degrees colder. We got Tambo from Fantasy Golf Degenerates. Man, we are so happy you took the time out from all this busy schedule this week. I know everybody's pulling at your strings, and we appreciate you having you on.
Yeah, happy to be on here, man. I definitely appreciate it. It is a little bit cooler up here, like you said. I do like that, but just chat with you guys before the show. I can tell it's going to be a good one. Follow Joe's stuff, especially for a long time. Appreciate that. You know, I've been hitting him up lately, and he said, "Hey, do you want to come on and do this thing?" I said, "Absolutely, man. Let's do it." Can't believe it's only night 3 of 8 for you boys. It's going to be a long week here, but I get the feeling for sure. A lot of different content, all these other places. So same feel.
All right. Yes. All right. And then Joe Rotoballer.com. What we got going on this week for the Masters, man, besides our 8-episode marathon?
Yeah, man, it's we're not even halfway there yet, AP. But like you said, a huge thanks to Tambo for making the time for us to do this. And yeah, to answer your question, we got everything going over at Rotoballer.com this week. Course breakdowns, betting tips, DFS coverage. We got a lineup optimizer over there, ownership projections, and some of the best guys in the PGA DFS industry right now. So we hope you'll go over and check it out. You can sign up this week. We're offering a weekly pass for the Masters. You can use promo code TURN and get a discount on that, and we hope you'll check it out.
Absolutely. Rotoballer.com, my opinion, best place in the world to go for your daily fantasy needs. Let's not mess around, guys. This is night 3 of 8. We got to get going. Let's get right into the Draftkings slate. Tambo, here's what we do, man. We roll right down through the pricing, and we'll start at the top, 10K and above. Scheffler, Ram, Johnson, JT, Morikawa, who I've called Colin Montgomery like 4 weeks in a row now. Vic Hovland and Rory McIlroy. A lot to talk about, a lot to forget here. I feel like we're going to have some huge flops in this range, honestly, guys. So, Tambo, you go first. Who we like here in the above 10K?
Yeah, I'm hoping these aren't the flops, but there's 3 guys I really like. I think others like them as well. But for me, it's just up top. I don't mind being a little bit, the same as everyone else. The chalk at the Masters has typically done quite well. And the guys that I like especially are Rahm and JT. I was talking pre-show with Joe. I said, like, if you've been on Rahm, I think you just got to stick with him. And that's what I'm going to do here. I know that's not sneaky. People are going to be on him. You've got Scheffler right above Rahm, lower ownership. You've got guys like Morikawa and Hovland below JT, but I just feel like these are the better guys for the course. The experience will come in handy that they've had some pretty consistent runs at this tournament. The other guy I want to play is DJ. I think DJ just is an interesting play because look at the match play there. He played incredibly well. And I know it's a different concept altogether, but he did play well. And the final match against my other fellow Canadian, Corey Connors there, talked about this with Kenny Kim on our show at the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast. I don't think he cared. I think it was just mail it in time. He was trying to get out of there as soon as he could and just sort of gift that last 167,000 is like $16.70 to DJ. So I think he was just happy to move on and get out of there. It doesn't matter on paper if you don't come in first anyway. So he looks really good to me. And then I'm struggling. If I wanted to go another guy up here, I can't decide between Rory and Morikawa. Maybe you guys can chime in on that. But those other 3 for sure, Rahm, JT, and DJ are all going to be in my pool.
Joe, who you like above 10K, bud?
Of course, love everything Tambo said. And I think Jon Rahm and JT are unbelievable plays. We know they've both got great course history at the Masters. They're both top notch all around. JT's probably the best pure shot maker in the game right now, as far as just a wide variety of shots that he has in his bag. And that's something he can demonstrate this year. Jon Rahm has just been uber consistent at Augusta National and overall. We were talking a little bit before the show, Tambo and I, and it feels like Jon Rahm's floor this week's like a T10. So I'm perfectly fine with either of those guys. But just to kind of flip the coin over, maybe take a little bit of a contrarian look up here, I really, really like Scotty Scheffler. I think we're going to get some leverage with him due to him being atop the salary scale, being priced a little bit above Rahm. But, I don't mind it at all. We know how hot he is. We know he's the new number 1 player in the world, 3 wins this year. But he's played Augusta really well, a couple top 20s in his 2 starts. And this is a guy that closed out last year, guys, in the majors going 8th, 7th, and 8th. So he's got a major championship ready game, especially if we're kind of going to get the bonus of a little bit lower ownership. Really like Scotty Scheffler up here. And I'll say the same thing for Colin Morikawa. Tambo touched on it. He's a tremendous ball striker. Already got the 2 major championship wins. So we know that he's kind of built for these big events. He improved a little bit last year off his Masters debut, had a top 20. And I heard him talking just in an AP article this week. So I apologize for whoever put that out. But he said that he hit more draws at a week at Augusta than he would hit in a whole year. And it's just not his shot. It's not his go-to shot. And I think he's going to adjust that this year. I think he's going to play shots he's comfortable with. We all know that he hits that cut perfectly. So I think we'll see him kind of find himself a little bit this week. And with that lower ownership, I really like the upside of a Colin Morikawa up here.
Well, Joe, you know me. I don't like to play the top of the list in the salary ever, hardly ever. And I was just telling y'all before we went on, first, I think second time I ever played fantasy, I took down a huge GPP. And my strategy then is still the strategy I use in every GPP, and that's I stack a couple of guys and use them in every lineup. So for me, I don't care to put this out. DJ is going to be in 100% of every lineup that I put in. Like you said, I think you play great the match play, and we like DJ whenever we see week by week improvement. And I think he's felt that storyline is building, and it has been building for the past 6 weeks. So I'm 100% in on DJ. Moving on down to the 9K range, there's a lot to talk about here. I could see a winner coming out here just as easy as a 10K and above. We got Cam Smith, Spieth, Xander, Cantlay, Koepka, and then we got a couple of injury guys in Willie Z with Matsuyama and DeChambeau. Joe, you go first. Is anybody here you're green lighting?
Yeah, I'm trying to find some guys to red light. I can't get them all in. They're so green. I love this range, man. And I just kind of realized we didn't even touch on Victor Hovland and Rory McIlroy that much in the 10K. Obviously, those guys are tremendous plays, but this salary scale is so stacked that we just can't hit on everyone. But yeah, in the 9K range, man, Cam Smith immediately jumps out there at 9,900. He's right at that 10K mark. If Scotty Scheffler hadn't started winning all these tournaments, we'd probably really be talking a lot more about Cam Smith than maybe what we are. Won the Century Tournament champions to open the year, and we know he's been a beast at Augusta, man. This course kind of mutes his weakness, which is spraying it off the tee. He's got plenty of room to operate here, and it kind of helps his strengths to shine, which is scrambling and a world-class short game. And he's maybe the best putter in the world right now. So you have to love Cam Smith. I certainly do. A tip of the cap to Jordan with the course history here. We know he's going to show up to play. Same can be said of Xander, just waiting on that win from Xander. My favorite here, maybe outside of Cam, or maybe even more so than Cam, guys, is Brooks Koepka at 9,400. I feel like he's back. We saw how he closed out the year last year, the major championships, top sixes in the last 3 majors last year. He's played very solid at Augusta National. So at 9,400 for a 4-time major champion, that's looked pretty solid, pretty motivated this year. I'm going to Brooks Koepka at 9,400.
Brooks Koepka. Well, Tambo, can you disagree with anything Joe says there?
Yeah, one I do disagree with, and it's just because it's just from today. I just got this little tidbit. It's going to be out tomorrow, probably in the thread that I do on Twitter, and I just think this is very interesting. I already wasn't that high on Cam Smith. I think he's great. I can't get him right. So it's the opposite of John Rahm, where I don't want to go back there now. I haven't been in on any of his stuff, so I'm not going to just go chase it now. And it looks like he's picking up some ownership. And one of the interesting things I saw today, obviously everyone getting all excited about the tee times dropping. Cam Smith is in the group right in front of Tiger Woods. And the thing about that is, you guys know how this stuff works at Augusta. They're all going to want to see the Tiger approach shot. And then what are the fans going to do? They're going to skip the green and run right to the next hole. So you're going to have all these the patrons, I should say, here at Augusta National, and they're going to be all running up to the next hole, scuffling around. They'll keep them in line a little bit, but I just think there's going to be that added pressure, the roars right behind you. Anything Tiger does is going to get that at this tournament. So I kind of like that he's got ownership popping in on him. I'm happy to drop down below. I love Brooks Koepka with Joe. I definitely agree with them there. The stat line that gets posted every year. I mean, the guy was on one leg here last year, but before that, it goes back like 5-6 years now. He's like 70 strokes better than I think DJ is second at majors, is like 28 under, and Brooks Koepka is like 90 something under. He just destroys majors. And so I'm going to ignore ownership and just play him no matter what. I like him there. Cantlay, Zalatoris, maybe even some Xander. Those guys are guys that I think, like Joe said, just have potential upside. At least he said with Xander, where you just know they can pop at any given time and they actually could win this tournament, but you can't play everyone. So if I'm off Smith, Matsuyama, Bryson, don't care to play them with those injuries. Berger, I think kind of like what you were talking about with Morikawa not having the shot in his bag. Now he can go and find it. We saw what he did at the Open, Morikawa, where he just finds all of a sudden what he needs and goes out and wins a major like that. He can do that here with a draw, but I don't know about Berger so much being in that same bucket. And I actually do like some of the guys in the 8K range. So Koepka, Willie Z, Cantlay, Xander, sort of the four that stand out for me.
You got any deeper thoughts on Willie Z, Tambo? Runner up here in his debut last year. We've seen him play some really good golf from tee to green. We know he's got the ball striking ability to play well here. You got any thoughts on him, man? That I really love him from tee to green, but that I just keep envisioning having Willie Z in my lineup come Sunday, and he's got to make a 6-footer, man.
Yeah, so, it does suck for sure from that aspect. That's why I'm always on him. If you follow me, you guys know that I've, talk about the guy, how he can't win because he basically has the yips there. But we'll say a couple things. One, the second is maybe the worst thing, even though that's a good thing on paper to most. Guys that have come in the top 10 here the previous year sometimes have a rough year out the next one, but 9,200, he's priced down from the guys above. The one thing that came out, I just keep saying this, but the Willie Z slander, if you will, where I was just saying this guy can't win, was my partner in crime there, Kenny Kim, saying that you should see his numbers over like the last 50 results of this. And he was comparing them against Scheffler, Hovland, and Morikawa. And he had basically the same, I think he had more top 25s, the same top 10s, the same top 5s. The only thing he was missing was the wins. And then you go back to the match play. It's not like he crushed, but he definitely got out of his group. He said he had a new putter with a weight in the back end of it. It was working much better. And that's something he's always been. He's been a pretty good lag putter. He struggles and basically has the yips within 5-6 feet. And that is a challenge here, but we know we need sort of that complete game. He's one of the better ball strikers. He's long enough off the tee. I think he's still going to be in the mix. And when you've got those injury concerns with Hideki above and Bryson below, even if Willie does come with a little bit of ownership, it's not that hard to get overweight. If he's 12, 15%, you can have 20, 25% and have a guy that you feel pretty good about being able to find his way through that leaderboard.
Yeah, so I started off my week this week. Actually, I had it circled a few weeks back. I had Cam Smith highlighted. I thought that this is a place that, he can really throttle that driver, and we know his short game is unbelievable. But, as I've kind of been taking in some content out there, I'm with you as far as ownership ticking up. I'm not interested in owning anybody. It's going to be around 20%. So I've kind of faded away in my thoughts about him. It's hard for me to ever think about a Masters and not have Jordan Spieth somewhere talking about this podcast. Our original mission statement was indeed we're Jordan Spieth Apologist podcast, and in DJ we trust. And I feel like I'm going to go there this week with both of them. Another name I want to add in there, Patrick Cantlay. I feel like everybody is really down on him. He's had a couple of good finishes here in the past. He's got the complete game. Let's hope he can. I think ownership alone has me thinking about him. Daniel Berger's a big red light for me. I'm putting the red ink to him basically because we've seen a trend that he does really well in weaker field tournaments and does very overall subpar in these huge field tournaments. So that's my thoughts on the 9K range. Willie Z, we got to be looking for him in all matchups across the board. He's going to be tough to beat in a one-round setup. So especially a guy out there cranking out 320-yard drives in the fairway every hole. That's tough to watch. Moving on to the 8K range, you said you liked a lot. I do too. Let's start at the bottom here. T. Hatton, Tony Finau, Joaquin Needham, Adam Scott, Sanjay. The new and added Tiger Woods at 8,500 as of now is in the field. Sam Burns, 8,600. Taylor Gooch, 87. Shane Lowry, 88. Louis O 89, who is a Masters green light, seems like every year, maybe even a major green light every year. Tambo, you go first. Who we like here?
Yeah, it is a range that I like quite a bit more, and that's why I tried to stick to like 8 guys, maybe 9 above completely. And then if I can add 5 in here, I don't feel bad because I'm not going to play too many guys in the 6K range. We'll talk about it when we get down there. But you mentioned a few. I guess this is the other thing I want. I'll go, but I was going to get your guys' takes because I want to get another thought process around this. Haven't got to talk on any of the content this week about since these tee times dropped. I mentioned a little tidbit on the Cam Smith thing earlier, but Louis O and Neiman are both in Tiger's group. That's it. That's who they're going out with. And so, look, I think any of them could do it. These are great players. Look, Neiman just won the Genesis at Riviera in a completely strong field that's, set up well against this course as far as comps in the past. Guys that had won there have green jackets. So I don't think he's against it, but I do think Louis O is the better guy to take there. I think Louis O can get by with that type of pressure. No problem. I know he hasn't closed out a lot of majors, but someone mentioned, I think it's Kyle Porter from CBS, is like 7 strokes away from 5 more majors or something, like just craziness down the stretch. But I think he's okay. The guys I like most are after Louis, though, is Shane Lowry. Really good form right now. Obviously had that unfortunate event at the Honda, the weather, the way it shook out, and Sepp Straka took it, but it is what it is. That happens. That's golf. Either way, he still has great form coming in, and his form is actually very, almost eerily similar to when he won the Open. So we know he's got that. We know he's got those good hands. We know he can play in wind. There's some weather aspects that we didn't really go into here, but just, I think he's got the all-around game. So I like him. And then Sam Burns. It's not that he's too cheap. It's probably a fair price, but I just feel like for a guy that's won as much as he has, just won at the Valspar a couple weeks ago, he's not saying he's Scotty Scheffler light, but he's definitely got the capability, and the price is much different. He's 8,600. So anything that he doesn't have of those top guys level and caliber, it's priced in at 8,600. So I think that's a fair price. And then down at the bottom, you mentioned Hatton. I'm going back and forth on this guy. I kind of want to play him. I think Finau is probably the better play from a course history perspective, what we saw these last couple of weeks coming in. But Hatton is still kind of interesting. When you look even overseas, he was doing well. And then all of the recent play, there's been a lot of top 10s in there. So kind of rounding into form at the right time, if you will. And he could just pull up, even though the course has got a little bit longer. He could go sort of Zach Johnson style back in the day, even if he doesn't want to get there on those par 5s. He's got the all-around game, and he's really good with the putter. So it doesn't worry me, the undulations, all that stuff that is going on. I think he can lag it up there, maybe even make some of them, and then he can make something at 8,000 work. So I kind of like him as well down at the bottom.
Yeah, let me touch on the tee time real quick. I have to be. My first thought when I was looking at some numbers, I'm a math nerd. I got a finance degree, accounting degree. And so I was breaking it down, and really statistically, Joaquin Niemann makes a lot of sense for a top 10, top 20, top 30, and top 40 bet mathematically. However, I brought this up. I actually watched last year's show that we did, and I brought this up last year. And, historically, Augusta's a high ball hitter course, and he's just not that. If we got any moisture at all in the fairways, that's going to be very difficult for him. And it's really hard to get to the right spots, to get to the places on these greens that you need to make birdie or have birdie opportunities. And so for that reason, like I said, I mean, it was ridiculous EV play on Neiman for top 20, top 30, and top 40. And I just ended up not liking that when it was all said and done. Now that the Tiger group's dropped, I don't really know. I feel like I haven't thought about that in so long that it's been out of my mind, but I do know Louis O has played a lot with Tiger, a lot in majors. Matter of fact, he won his first major with Tiger in his group. And I'll be honest, man, Louis O seems like to me like he really doesn't care about anything. And that might be one of the reasons he doesn't have the 5 extra majors is the killer instinct. So I love Louis O and the first round leader and overall bet, even though it, most likely won't happen. However, you're getting such good odds with him with what we get down here in Tennessee. Joe, hit the 8K range and splash around and everything we just said, buddy.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in this range, guys. You all hit on a lot of it and really enjoyed listening to it. I'm with Tambo. Really like Shane Lowry here. The Open champion from a few years ago. We know he's capable of playing majors well. The form's been excellent. And his Masters form has improved over his last couple of starts. So, and we see that. We see a lot of guys start out slow, their first few Masters starts of their career. This is a golf course with a lot of subtleties, a lot of nuances. can take these guys a few times around to kind of get the hang of things, which makes you like a guy like a Louis O or an Adam Scott in this range, or a Tiger Woods in this range. This is definitely a course where I'm willing to play veterans that maybe we've not seen as sharp a form from recently. But we know they know how to play this golf course. So like Louis O there, Shane Lowry's maybe my favorite in the group, and this is a really nice buy low spot, I feel, for Tony Finau down there at 8,100. I think we're getting a great price on him, and I think we're going to get an ownership break as well. We know the form hasn't been there. He's really struggled around the greens. But when we start kind of chopping ththese guys down into players that have a skill set that can succeed on this golf course, Tony Finau is one of those guys. So I like him at 8,100 at depressed ownership compared to what we've seen in the past for him. Tambo mentioned Sam Burns. I think he's a really talented player, but his first start on this golf course, we'll kind of have to see how it goes. He hadn't played well in majors yet, but hadn't played many majors. And this is going to be his first Masters. So, it's kind of a gamble as to how he's going to take to Augusta National. And maybe the biggest question mark for me, I'm curious to get Tambo's thoughts on this. Taylor Gooch at 8,700 is kind of the first really eyebrow raiser price on the scale for me. I just do not get this price. Maybe I'm missing something, but maybe it's a spend up to get contrarian type of thing we could do there. But I just do not understand this Taylor Gooch price.
Yeah, I come around on it a little bit because what you just said is kind of like a saying I have, is paying up for probability. And because of what we're both thinking, like if you look at it, like I think when I was at the start of the week, I got my old notes here, but he was 110 to win and Burns was like 40. And so that was like, to me, that's to win the tournament. Yeah. And now he's $100 more. Now, when you do dig in a little bit more, numbers have changed since then, of course, too, but just digging into the stats, they actually do stand out. Like the guy can do, it's almost like, I always try and do this with these tiers and try to like compare guys. He's not at Cam Smith's level, even close, but I just looking like Cam Smith light in the sense of what does Taylor Gooch want to do? Bomb it out there, but he's a little erratic with it. He can get away with that here, but then he kind of has the rest of that game. He has a complete game, decent around the greens, can find it, get a putter going, but he's a debutant as well. So I think it's what you said, Joe. I think you're definitely taking some risk with guys like him and Sam Burns. And we'll get to Cameron Young later when we do the 7K range. But I do think some of these debutants can come through. It's a different class or breed, if you will, nowadays with these young golfers. They just find a way. And I believe it was even like Tony Finau might have been the par 3 hole-in-one twisted ankle, where I think that was his first time out and then ended up top 10ing it even after all that as a first time. Like these guys can find a top 10. It would not surprise me on Sunday if Sam Burns is sort of in contention down the stretch, falls out to a T9 or even Taylor Gooch. So I think you can take some chances on these guys in your large field stuff, especially.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in a tournament like the Millie Maker, where you do have to think outside the box a little bit. Taylor Gooch is a really nice player, but I was just kind of thrown off by that price tag. If you really dive into Taylor Gooch this year, we could be talking about the guy having a couple of wins. He's been in contention in a couple of tournaments and had really bad final rounds. But just kind of a weird price tag there. I guess I'm going to throw it out there for UAP and for you, Tambo. Tiger Woods. We gotta say a little something about it. Are you guys playing him? What do you do from a DFS perspective? I know we're all pulling for him, but what are we doing from a DFS perspective?
Go ahead, AP.
I'll be crying if he's in the final group on Sunday. I'll be sitting on the couch with a handkerchief crying it out. But no, I can't get on board. It's too much unknown here. I watched this press conference today. I feel like we're going to see that, he's around even par for the tournament and he's got them wincing looking faces come Saturday or Sunday. And, and not saying he blames it on that, but he kind of blames it on that and talks about it a lot. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah. I just did a show with at Tour Picks, Joe and Andy Lack, and I hopped on theirs right before this. And I think I'm already going to change my take and I'll just be the villain, I guess. As a golf fan, will I be excited because Sunday will be that much more exciting? Yes, because it's going to be good golf. But in general, will I be happy? No, because I'm not playing any time. I'll have a little bit of Tiger Woods. What I told them I'm going to do exactly, so you guys be clear. I'm going to play in the $100 Millie Maker. I'll put a few in with Tiger. I'll surround it with my core plays. so that if my core crushes and Tiger somehow does do his thing, I at least have a shot if my stuff goes off. But we're talking like a few lineups here out of a bunch. So across my whole portfolio. So I won't have any. And so I'll probably be like UAP. I'll be there with the pockets out. I'm broke. So I won't be as happy. Like, good for Tiger. The comeback story will be great for golf. We love golf, and I'll be happy a little bit, but not that much, man. I care about money too. And I want to, my family wants the money too. So I'll be the villain a little bit and say, I hope he makes the cut, gets back into it, has some fun, but that's where I put my money on. I did bet him plus 120 to make the cut. I thought that was, just a stupid number considering he's never missed one. And the way the cut line sets up here, where I did the math before the show, it's like 77 or 78 out of the 91. And I think it's 78 because Nakajima, the world #1 amateur, I think he makes the cut. So I think he's definitely still in the mix, but it's not that many guys. It's 50 in ties. I think Tiger can make a cut here for sure.
Yeah. I'm all up. Yeah. There's
you
nothing else to say about it. Joe, what do you think, buddy?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same sentiment as you guys. I'm not going to be playing him, maybe other than just tossing him in some, small dollar GPP stuff. As kind of like Tambo mentioned, I'll be tossing him a few things. I just don't think he can get there. The guy's coming off a life-threatening injury and a broken leg, and we've seen him do amazing things. So, I think he can certainly go out there and navigate around this golf course and play well. But from a DFS perspective, I'm just not going to get there myself either.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, moving on down to the 7K range, guys, and this is there's a lot of value here. A lot of great players. But we also have some injury issues down here, and I don't really know where to go with this range. There's some guys in here we normally like to play, but on this golf course, we even sure. And I'll be honest, the guy that kind of looks the best for me down here, I know you guys are gonna have a lot to say about Corey Connors. I know you are, but I love Sergio and Bubba down here from the vet standpoint, past winners. I'm gonna throw Bubba's name out there every time when we play here. And I also like Seamus, man. I like Seamus. So what are your thoughts on that, Tambo?
Love that. Actually, I'm glad you brought him up. I didn't know if anybody would. I'm a big power guy. I talk about this all the time. I've been riding him, well before the Barbasol win. That was, pretty incredible when JT Poston thought he was taking it down, and Seamus goes and hits the bunker shot to force him to make like the 7 or 8 foot putt. And then they went to the next playoff hole and he won. So I've been a power fan for quite some time. Again, he can bomb it out there. He's got it around the green game. He can, lag it up. I think he's fine here. And I think he won't be that popular. So I like that. I like your Bubba call. I'm not as high on Sergio, but I do like Bubba quite a bit. I think he's shown some flashes, like when HV3, who we might talk about later, HV3 got that W in Saudi. Bubba was right in the mix. From that point on, he kind of turned it on just a little bit more, showed some flashes in certain places. And I think this is definitely a place that he can show up. He's just as creative as the next guy, knows what to do here. Obviously, winner. This is just a spot that you can play Bubba at. Sergio is too, like you said, AP, but just not as high on him. The guys at the top there, I kind of like the two squeezed around him. I like Russell Henley. I think, again, you look at all the stats, everything, Georgia boy, if you go back, he hasn't played here for a little while, but when he was playing here, he was playing well here. And I think he knows the course quite well. So I like that about him. And then Answer, really peculiar, that WD there last week. But I just think back to the match play, like the guy mowed over Colin Morikawa, different format, but he was scoring in that format still, scoring well enough. And he had every shot in his bag. He was making the short-sided chips. He was coming out of the bunker. He was doing basically everything that you need to get around a course like Augusta. He's another guy, not the longest, but he can put it out there enough, and he can, again, play the approach of just lay it up, get it up there tight, lag it up, and be able to sneak his way through. And especially if that wind and all that stuff comes into play, I think he's a guy that could just find his way slowly inching up the leaderboard as the week goes on. I don't know what to do with Connors. Like, I'm going back and forth on the guy. Like I said earlier, my Canadian brethren, as Kenny Kim would say about all the guys we talk about on our show, he's a guy that makes sense. But when the range is this packed, and some of the guys we just talked about, I just feel good about. Siwoo at the bottom, Max Homa, all three of the guys at 7K, and Luke List, Cam Young, Bobby Mack. You can't play everybody, but if you do take stands up top and play like 4 guys, 5 guys, you got plenty of room here to play 12 of these 20, and then pick a few 6Ks and still have your pool round out at 30 guys out of the 78 playable that I was talking about earlier, where you're still taking stands and getting leverage on guys within the field. So I like a bunch of them. I want to hear Joe's take on Corey Connors and then some of the other guys he likes. But what about Casey too with the injury, the back injury? I'm not sure on him either.
Yeah, Paul Casey's a question mark. We normally love playing him at this golf tournament. He was extremely popular for this event last year. A very palatable $7,600 price tag, but there are the injury concerns. That's something I'm going to try to kind of keep an eye on. But there's so many great options around him that I don't think you have to go there if you are concerned. You mentioned Corey Connors. He's going to be one of the most popular plays on the slate. But it's with reason, man. 2 top 10s in a row here at the Masters. The ball striking's been coming back into form over the last few events. So, just a ton to like. Obviously top 10 upside here in the mid 7K range. And we can say that for a couple other guys. You mentioned Russell Henley, Tambo, maybe one of my favorite plays on the slate there at 7,800. Really like him. Love the form. This guy took a gut punch from Hideki kind of in the season opener, and he hasn't folded. He's hung very, very tough. He actually led the players' field in strokes gained approach, gained over 11 strokes on approach at TPC Sawgrass. And as Tambo mentioned, played really well when he has played the Masters. Hadn't played it in a while, but has looked good at Augusta. So, maybe the upside's capped. I don't know that he can win this event, but, I kind of think a dark horse top 5 kind of thing for Russell Henley certainly in play. Abraham Answer is also interesting. Loved him. I remember I loved him for this golf tournament last year. But it's a different year. He's coming in. The form hasn't been as good. Got the weird WD as Tambo mentioned. But I think at this ownership, it's worth giving him a look. I mean, let's remember, guys, at that November Masters, Answer was right in the mix up there. For a top 5, and just kind of had a bad final round and fell down the board. But certainly think he can play well. And then as Tambo mentioned, as we get down to the bottom of the 7s, all kinds of options. You mentioned Seamus Power making his debut, but there's plenty of length here. I really like Siwoo Kim. We know that he's volatile, but that's okay with me. I'm popping him in GPPs, trying to grab that upside. I know a blow up's a possibility, but at 7,100, willing to take that risk. Same can be said for Luke List. Phenomenal ball striker, great from tee to green. Maybe we have a good putting week. Cameron Young is a very interesting player, a Will Zalatoris type of player. I don't know that we'll see a runner-up like we saw from Willie Z last year, but I think this young man is a talented player that could make a run and surprise a lot of people that maybe are outside the PGA DFS community, not familiar with him. But overall, really love this 7K range. Tons of viable options here.
Yeah. What so a name I want to talk about who grades really high in my model. He's played great here in the past, but there could be some issues with length, and if the grounds are wet. Matty Fitzpatrick. Joe, will you touch on him?
Yeah, I love Matt Fitzpatrick this week. We throw the players out where he kind of got the bad side of that weather draw. We throw the players out. He's had a top 10 in every event he's played this year. And he's got a T6 on his Masters resume a few years ago. Not the longest guy in the world, but still, if you look at his stats, I don't have him in front of me, but he's been very, very good on par 5s. He's going to rank up near the top of this field, surprisingly, in strokes gained on par 5. So, I love Fitz. I kind of passed over him there, AP, so I'm glad you brought him up, but I think he's an excellent play there in the mid 7s. What do you think, Tambo? Are you green lighting or red lighting?
I brought him back in. I actually was red lighting him based on just like looking at I never do just because of ownership, but because the ownership was picking up on him. And mainly for me, there was so many other viable options right next door to him. You were talking about numbers earlier and doing some of that T20 stuff and checking out the EV plays. That's where you can see there was other guys that had similar odds to him that were way less owned. But now with the thing, like looking at the weather and looking at some of these other options, this is exactly what he wants. This is where he thrives. Think back to I think it was the Memorial. He actually had bones on his bag that time, just a couple of years back, and just crept his way up the board. And then, like Joe said, if you cancel out the weather, he got the bad side of the draw. There was a heavy draw at the Players. All those top 10s beforehand, complete game, a winner. Not over here, but on the European tour, the guy's won a bunch of big name tournaments. I think that's the running joke too, is he's won like 2 different Masters over there. So sometimes the books joke around and call this one the US Masters because of that. And I know Fitzpatrick's won some Masters over there. So I don't know. He looks like a pretty good play at 7,700. The more you look at it, and the guy I was leaning on just to add one more piece that was right below him was Fleetwood. And Fleetwood is another guy that now is like right there, sort of in that mix around Tiger's group, where I think he's just 1 or 2 ahead of it and something like that, that I just can think of little things like that I'm just looking for reasons, but it's probably still fine. I kind of lean Fitzpatrick, and I definitely like Henley, like we both talked about. So I'm good with Fitzpatrick there.
I got you. So 6K range. This is a little funky for other than normal. Usually there's a few guys we can pick out, and there's some great players down here in the 6K range. Unfortunately, there's a lot of what we like to call kind of the dead weight down here when it comes to DFS and GPPs. Very few, most of your guys in this range are going to miss the cut, especially there towards the low sixes. But I'm going to talk about a couple. I really like Sepp Straka where he's at. Thomas Peters shot like 40 under in the match play and somehow didn't advance. And one thing that's really interesting, and I don't know why this happened, but JJ Spawn last week, it seemed like a lot of people were talking about him. He graded high in just about everybody's model, and he came through. He's actually decently grading out this week as well. Not quite as good. Let me double check before I stick my foot in my mouth. Yeah, he's I got him like 20th in my model. So, I mean, and we know he got hit it unbelievable last week. I mean, he could have won that tournament by 8 shots. If he could have got the putter going early in the tournament. So, do we like anybody here in the sixes? I mean, I know there's some splashiness here. I know is everybody going to have a bet on Gary Woodland first round leader? I mean, Thomas Peters first round leader. You're going to get some pretty heavy odds on that. So where are we at over here in the 6K range? Tambo, you start out.
Yeah, Peters for sure. That's the guy. You said it. And I actually did. I did the show like last Friday. It's been all coming together, but on Friday with Mayo and Raza, we did a first look right out of the gate. And that was, like I said, I want Peters first round leader then, and you said it now, and I love that call. And then interestingly enough, you mentioned the Spawn call. Spawn was 6,700 last week. I had Joe in my thread. I love that he called out Spawn. I said, this is a great call by Joe, because he was popping it on my stats, but I was like, is there any other angle you can talk about here? And Joe, I thought, had the best case for it. So I posted that out, ended up going on to win the thing. And funny enough, so they made him the same price this week at 6,700, but there's another guy for me this week at 6,700 that's popping the same way Spawn was last week. And it's actually Tom Hoagy. And I'm not sure, I haven't heard anybody talking about him, but he's popping in all my stats and obviously just won recently. I think, look, long enough, but mainly for me, it's more about the greens that he finds and the ability here where like the guys that talk about this course. And again, whether he connects and does this coming out like this, early on in his career, like, coming off a win, but at the Masters, I mean, where you got to find the right spot, but they talk about aiming for the green and not the flag stick. And all the guys you think back to when Tiger won in 2019 that didn't know on 12 that you need to just go for the center of the green and make your par, they all went in the water. And then Tiger just walks up like a pro, plants it to the left-hand side like Jack Nicklaus knew and talked about at the end of the broadcast, goes up and makes his par, moves on, and ends up winning the thing. I'm not sure if Hoagy can actually execute, but I'm willing to take a chance here. So he's another guy for me. Woodland, who you mentioned. And then last couple guys for me right quick. Harold Verner, another debutant. But again, like I said, I think people are just going to overlook him. Really good ball striker, complete game, long off the tee. And last 5 or 6 events, like he won over in Saudi, and that was like an 18th and a 6th. And I guess people will probably write him off. So I'll go there. And then the last guy, the Canadian Jordan Spieth, Mackenzie Hughes, 6,300. Again, not going to play a bunch of them, but I think he's a good guy to have in your pool down here that can just grind his way through. We've seen it at different tournaments in the past where he's done just that, and he has a really good around the green game and good with the putter. So at 6,300, I'll go to Hughes as well.
Joe, where you at in the 6K range, buddy?
Yeah, I'm just going to go straight to Tom Hoagy, a player that Tambo touched on. This guy, he's going to get a lot of labels, journeyman, stuff like that. But I think people kind of wrote him off because he didn't win a golf tournament until he's 32 or whatever. Yeah. But this guy in a Masters field, guys, this guy ranks 6th in strokes gained ball striking, and he's 6,700, 7th in strokes gained tee to green. He's playing amazing golf right now. Played really well at the Players. The finishing position might not reflect just how well he played there. But yeah, I'm 100% in with Tambo. Tom Hoagy jumps out at 6,700 in a big way. My only concern is that he's making his Masters debut. But I love him from tee to green. Love what he's doing. Been solid around the green. Ranks 30th strokes gained around. So just a really solid play there for me at 6,700. You mentioned Gary Woodland at 69 AP. I think that's kind of an obligatory player to touch on with how well he's been playing, a former major champion. Hadn't really done it at Augusta though. Just never lined up for him really in this event. Maybe this is the year. He's playing really well. We saw a couple of top fives on the Florida swing. Played well in Texas last week. So there's a lot to like with Gary Woodland, but the ownership's going to reflect that. I'll toss out a couple of wild cards. A guy I think Tambo touched on, and we had John Hasselbauer, PGA tout, on last night. And he loves this kid as a top amateur play this week. That's Keita Nakajima. I think he's extremely talented, number one amateur in the world. Had 3 rounds of 67 or better in the Sony Open to open the year. So, the kid's an amateur, but he can play, that's for sure. And then a vet down there, I'll just toss out, played well here last year and has played well here on multiple occasions over his career. That's Stuart Sink. His best start this year was his last start at the Valspar. So at 6,400, I'll be there a little bit in GPPs.
I feel like, guys, we're going to have to roster quite a bit of 6K people if we're going to be grabbing a couple of these guys at the top. So, I mean, are you okay with splashing around with a Cage Lee, Swafford, Sink? Are we okay with? I mean, we're going to have to, right?
Yeah, I think I like the Sink call quite a bit. He's one I didn't bring up. I like that there. The Nakajima thing is actually an incredible story. This is another little one right quick for you. But the 2 PGA Tour events he played made the cut. The Sony Open and the Zozo were won by his idol in Hideki. Hideki won both those events. He got to be there for that. And he's like a massive favorite to win the AM, which means he'll be in Butler Cabin with Hideki, likely handing the jacket off to somebody else. I don't think we get many back-to-back winners. That's like all time. I think it's Faldo, Nicklaus, and Tiger or something that have gone back-to-back, and obviously Hideki with the injuries, but pretty crazy story for this guy. So I don't hate him. I just don't know if we see like top 20 upside and AP, just to go back to your point there. That's why I'm bringing it up, is like, I like that you want to put some of these guys in your lineup, but the challenge is I think it's different than every other tournament where usually you get your 6 guy through, you're like, as long as he makes the cut, I'm good. Everyone's going to make, if not everyone, but you know what I mean? A lot of people are going to make the cut here. So we want more upside than that. Look, for a young guy, amateur, maybe he does have that full upside. He's literally number 1 AM in the world, but I'd take some chances on like the top 20 out of like a Sink or the guys that we talked about with Peters, Hoagy. I want these guys that I think have more, they got more risk, but they have more upside if they do get there, I think. And that's what I'm looking for, more than just get me a top 40 and see what happens. That's how I think of it.
Yeah, I think you're going to have kind of to piggyback on what you're saying, Tambo. I think you're going to have so many guys making the cut this week that this isn't a week. On a normal slate, we're looking for a guy down here just to make a cut. In a lot of ways, but this week they're such a huge percentage of this field is going to make the cut, man. We really need to be looking for upside down here. When we're looking at 6,400. So I'm in lockstep with you on that thought process.
I like your Stracker call as well too. Sorry not to cut you, but I just remembered you brought him up again. Another guy that I think just has the full firepower. If we like some of the other guys we mentioned, that like even the guys like Lowry that were there when he was getting the job done, like he outdid him at the Honda in tough conditions at a very tough course, not comparable, but lower score or higher scoring, I should say, and at a course that had a pretty strong field. So things like that is where I'm looking at it versus just guys, like I said, that can maybe make a cut and get me a top 40. I'm looking for the potential for that upside.
Real quick, lastly, I thought I heard some chatter. Maybe Cage Lee might be having some kind of injury. He played terrible last week. He might be he was definitely, I think, on the wrong side of the. He got a little bite of that win the first day. I think went and shot like maybe 3 under on the front, maybe 4 or 5 over on the back on his open at 18, and then shot way over the second round. I didn't know if anybody else heard about that or thought about that. I've been following Cage Lee pretty tightly because he usually doesn't get a lot of respect in DFS or in the stakes world. Has anybody else heard anything about that?
I didn't hear about the injury, but my biggest takeaway is like we call him TPC Lee for a reason. And if he couldn't come through there, whether it was just about a wind or whatever it might be, something's got to be going on, because usually he just absolutely destroys those courses, and it's not what we got to see last week. So I got a hard time going to him here as well, even though I'm with you. I usually do like this guy quite a bit. My counterpart, Kenny Kim, who I just talked about a couple times on the show, he loves playing some KH Lee. And usually we have some Korean versus Canadian bets going on with all these guys that are down, Svensson versus KH Lee, things like that. So I don't really have any love for him, but I didn't hear anything specifically about the injury.
All right, guys, that's the DraftKings slate. We just went through every player just about. Well, a lot of good takes, Tambo, Joe. Man, that's why you guys are pros, and I'm just the guy that has a microphone. So, but what we do here at the end of every episode, Tambo, and we're especially going to do it with guests, is that we have what we call the Dart and the Heart series. You're going to tell me what your dart play of the week, and that's your long shot. You're standing across the room throwing it on a dartboard, and your heart play is just, you wake up and you got $5 worth of chips in the drawer, and you got to go throw it on somebody, case money. Who deep down in your heart you think is going to win. So start out with your dart play, and who you think is going to win. Who's your long shot?
Yeah, I think it's the longest shot it's going to get. I know not many long shots come through here, but like I said, I do like Thomas Peters. I always like his game. I think he's a fair price. I can play him a bunch in daily fantasy. I bet him first round leader. I bet him outright. I just think it's a guy that you could take a shot on. He's got the upside to get there, and he can definitely shock the world and come out and get the job done. It'd be a pretty big jacket. He's a big boy, so I think he's a good guy to go with there. And then my heart play, I guess I got to go back up top. Like I said, just my heart says Justin Thomas. Like all the stuff, he's popular, but some of the stuff that's going overlooked. I think how much time he gets to spend with Tiger. He was out there in a practice round with Tiger and Charlie. The joke about John Rahm earlier today in his interview, saying that Tiger doesn't give him nothing, but he'll give a whole dissertation to JT. And then don't forget Bones on the bag. Like, this is a bigger thing and a bigger factor than most might think. So I got to say Justin Thomas for that one.
There you go. You'll get ours tomorrow night on Wednesday night. Tambo, appreciate you coming on. We love your mind here. This first time I ever met you, heard any of your content was today. I look forward to listening to more of you, man. Appreciate you. Two guys from the South, bringing you in and speeding us up.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. Joe, especially, thanks for reaching out, man. AP, it was definitely nice meeting you. Thank you guys so much, and I appreciate you. Hope you have a good rest of your week. I know you got 5 more shows to go, so good luck with that, and have a good Masters week.
All right, yeah, everybody. I'm Andrew Putters. This is Joe Nicely. You've listened to the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast, brought to you by Rotoballer.com.